Well, hello, everybody. Kevin Thompson back with you for another episode. And I got to tell you, I am totally stoked to do this interview. And what's kind of cool about it, well, first of all, Isaac, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation, do this interview, because I'm excited to introduce you and share your story and experience around this topic with everybody.
Oh, well, thank you, Kevin. I mean, this is something I've been looking forward to. I've known you for a long time, and I actually feel like it's an honor to be here, just simply because you're a good friend and a great business person. I just love watching what you've done with your things. And so when you said you were doing this, I said, yeah, man, it's good.
Yeah, well,
Thank you.
And you know, and it just, what a testament to everything that we're talking about here. Because of course, the purpose of doing these interviews and sharing them with other entrepreneurs, other founders, other CEOs is to, inspire and motivate them to place an intentional focus on creating more real, meaningful, and valuable relationships in their life. Because, when it comes to business and even our personal life, the relationships we have, that's the most valuable asset we have. Everything else stems from that. And what's interesting about this is, I usually just kind of turn it over to you, but I want to share a little story because you and we met in this mastermind group, Genius Network. I don't know how long ago. It's probably been 8, 9, 10 years ago now. And
oh yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. And at that particular meeting, you and you were only in that group for one year. You attended 2 meetings in that year. And I just happened to be at one of the meetings that you attended. And you and I just made a real connection at that event. And I don't remember what I shared with you during the course of our conversations over those 2 days. But what I do remember is at the end of those 2 days, you know what? You were like, Kevin, man, I just really appreciate what we talked about. And I got this condo up in Seattle, which is right in your neck of the woods. And I'm not there that often. And here's a phone number. And you can call this number, and the person who answers that phone will set it all up for you. And you and your family can go down there and you can enjoy that space. And you just take your family and go enjoy it. It's got a beautiful view of the Seattle waterfront. And what a generous offer that was, Isaac. And I never took you up on it. And at the time, my thinking was that, well, I don't want to bother Isaac. I don't want to inconvenience him. I don't want to put him out. And so I'm not going to go stay there. And the crazy thing is like, it wouldn't have impacted you at all.
Not at all. No, I wanted you to go there. And it's not something that, when you have a real estate asset like that, it was just, you wanted to share it with special people. And, and you were one of those special people. And it's just one of those things where it feels, it's at the Harbor Steps. It's right next to the Four Seasons. So it was right next to that, right on the same level of Bill Gates's condo on the top floor. So I would flip quarters into his balcony to get his attention, and he would wave, and Melinda would wave. And so I just wanted people to enjoy it, special people. And you were one of those people. We had an instant trust with you. You're very authentic in the group, which I genuinely appreciated. So yeah, it was your loss. I'm sorry you didn't take it, but it's a sure fun place. And it was a nice big place for kids and lots of good food and room service and the whole bit. I had it set up for just to take care of anybody that wanted to visit. But yeah, I'm glad you remember that.
Well, and the thing is, it comes with such a powerful lesson because at that point in my life, when you and I had that conversation, I really had a challenge with receiving from other people like that, and not realizing that by being that way, I'm actually, I love giving to other people. I love the feeling that comes from that. But at the same point, even you just kind of reiterated it here. I kind of deprived you from the joy that comes from giving when you want, like you just said, I really wanted you to go stay there, And so I don't do that anymore. When somebody wants to give to me, I just graciously receive because it's a two-way street. And I'll tell you, when we can open our, and I don't want to get way sidetracked on this, and I've never done this on one of these interviews, but it's just such an important lesson that when we can open ourselves up to receiving from others and just doing that graciously and thankfully, and it gives us so much joy, so much more abundance in our lives, so much more revenue and just
Mhm.
satisfaction. And it allows us to in turn give more. It's just
Yeah.
kind of this big, huge circle. And so, Isaac, I might not have taken you up on the actual offer you made, but it did not go to waste. A huge lesson
Yeah.
has been benefiting me ever since. And
Well,
so,
good. Good. No,
yeah,
and I think, when you have people make those offers, and I've done the same. I've had someone offer me something, and I'm like, well, they didn't mean it, is one of the first things you think of. Oh, they didn't mean it, or they're just being nice. And and a lot of it is yeah, they're just being nice. But also, here's the kicker. I love letting people, and till this day, love letting people use my stuff, have access to certain things that I'm involved in, because we then later have a story. Then I can follow up with you and say, how was it? What would you have done better? Um, what did you enjoy about it, or what didn't you enjoy about it? Because what I wanted to do is make it. I took my family there, but I also would lend it out to other families and other people that I cared about and that I wanted to get to know better. And it wasn't just gratitude. What I got out of it is I got a story back out of it. I got a connection back out of it, something that we could commonly share outside of the meeting that we were at. Right? We met at a mutual place, and I wanted to share something. So I still do that to this day. It is. I do get something out of it. One, you feel good when someone gets to enjoy something
right.
that you can't enjoy that sits there, but you also get a reason for follow up. And the follow up was just, hey, yeah, it was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That kind of thing.
yeah,
So yeah.
very cool. Well, and the cool thing is that you and I made such a powerful connection that one day, that one conversation that we
Yep.
had, or I guess those 2 days, that we have been friends ever since. And
Mm-hmm.
we've
Yep.
stayed in touch, and it's been just an amazing relationship over the years. And here we are now. And I'm just
Yep.
excited to have you share your story and your experience around this. But let's start with just letting you share a little bit about who you are. Who is Isaac Jacobson? What do you do? Who do you serve? What motivates you to do what you do? And we'll just kind of start there, give some people some background on you.
Yeah. So, I can tell you where, we can talk about where I've been, but I'll tell you where I am now. I
Okay.
think that's real, where I am now, and then maybe what led up to it. What I work on now has to have purpose to me. And so, the businesses that I'm involved in, if it doesn't have, or even the relationships, there isn't an overlying outward purpose of it, real life purpose, then I'm not so interested in it. I'm also something brand new in the mix that scares me a little bit. I like that. Versus kind of going back through my career, I've learned, how to do, how to invest well from different people, how to sell well. I mean, one of my first, kind of jumping back to, first entrepreneurial piece, Ed Bruno, is still a business partner with him today, Accelerate Ventures, my investment fund. He told me the joy of selling. And through that, I became a pretty good salesperson, whether it was a widget or equity, a stock in a company, something like that. And then, moving through my career. So, I come from pretty humble beginnings, and the career kind of lends itself to me. My mother told me, I'll never forget this. I come from a family of medical professionals. There's a lot of doctors, nurses, and PhDs in my family. I'm the only one that didn't take that path. I'm the only person that went into sales and went into business. And my mom knew that early on. I didn't do well in school, so she had me load my little red wagon and sell door to door stuff. She said, Isaac, you just need to learn how to sell. So I think she kind of saw that I didn't have the book smarts to go ahead and get what I needed, but I might as well create my social skills. And so I'm kind of jumping all over the board here, but that showed me that she saw that, if you can sell, you'll never go hungry, and put yourself out there. Ed Bruno, moving fast forward to a lot of things, Ed Bruno really showed me when I hired him as my VP of sales for my first tech company, which was headquartered in Seattle. I'm originally from Utah. Showed me the joy of selling. I saw selling as a task, as something you had to do. You had to do so many cold calls. You had to knock on so many doors. You had to do so many things. But he talked to me about, the joy of it, the joy of sharing stories, like we were talking about, having a common story. And so from that, I grabbed that piece of the joy and the thrill I get of meeting new people. So I go with the mindset now, when I'm not really selling anymore. I'm just making new friends every day.
Yeah.
And I go with that concept. And so that has served me well. And then through my career, I've done some tech startups, and whether it was first starting to sell their services and then moving up the ranks to selling the stock to investors, and then ultimately joining investment groups and being CEOs of stuff. Generally, just most of it's been interim, to fix them, put them on the right track, either cash flow positive or figure out that they're not a fit. So figure out a way to dismantle that. Having respect with the people that you work with, being transparent is the my number one goal in life, is to be as transparent as possible.
Yeah.
I think you and I have shared that with conversations when you've shown me. This is the one thing I love about you, Kevin, is we connected so well. It was the strangest thing, that when you make a phone call, I answer it. When you email me, I answer it. There are some people I don't quite answer it quickly, but I think you're one of the rare people that have figured out a process well enough that I say, okay, he has something interesting. So, because there is that piece. But rushing about what I am. So first is learning to make friends and sell people. And that's what kind of built in that piece, that relationship of getting to look at more deal flow, look at more companies, just because I was an open book. I was an open book and transparency. And then my business partners that helped molded me through the next one is Sean Reyes, who's now the Attorney General of Utah. But he showed me that the value of loyalty. So I could sell really well. And I was kind of, as everybody that I met with, transparent with everybody. But then he showed there are certain people that you want to be loyal to, even when times get tough. And be careful about that. Loyalty is earned, right? Trust. I had a saying: I can buy talent, but I can't buy trust. And I would use that with him. And then now, what's interesting in my career is once I had enough deal flow and I had enough network and I had enough access to whomever I want on the planet I can get to, if I need to get to them, is now having faith. So this has been a turn, and having faith and purpose, believing that something good is going to happen with somebody. And that was a harder hill to climb, but having people say, believe in it, let's have some faith. Maybe the numbers don't all line up, but you believe in this person, you believe in this mission. And I say, yes, well, then let's have some faith in it. Where before I was driven by sales, I was driven by loyalty, I was driven by numbers, I was driven by transparency. To now have someone say, well, just believe in me. And that has been a very hard thing that I think I wouldn't say master, but I'm starting to play in. And I think I'm starting to play well in. So I hope I didn't drone on too much, but that's kind of like the summary of my path so far.
Well, and I'll tell you, having had, because of our relationship, kind of a front row seat to some of this, and some of the things that you shared with me when we first met, and how your life was, how your business was, who you interacted with at that point in your life, how you interacted with them, who they were, and like, looking from the outside, looking in, everybody would have thought, myself included, man, Isaac is really successful. And and you were, you were successful in so many ways, but in other ways, you were like, man, I got a lot of room for improvement here.
Yeah.
And you did that. I remember later, you and I had a conversation a couple of years later, and you were like, you know what, Kev, you kind of inspired me a little bit. And I shut that other business down for a year. And I took my family traveling. And this year, and I think we were talking a couple of years later in about the spring, like April, May, we had caught up.
Yeah.
And you were like, this year I restarted, and I am now doing business the way I want to do business, only working with people that I want to work with. And it has been an absolute game changer.
Yeah.
And so it has been so cool to see. And it's a continually evolving thing, because now you're, the last conversation you and I had, when I was asking you if you'd want to do this interview, you were telling me about some stuff that you and one of your partners were working on. And you're kind of changing up what your focus is and who you want to focus on helping. And yeah, a little bit scary, but you're like, man, Kevin, this just feels right,
Yeah.
And so the epitome of just what you were just talking about. and so,
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I think everyone, we all make the changes in what we want to accomplish in our personal life. And what's interesting about with sharing with you, for some reason, and I think you've experienced this, you have a unique chair, is that I think people open up to you more than they normally would with others. I don't know what it is. I think I told you that the first day I met you. I said, you are very different, very authentic. And someone, in my business, you come off guarded. You have to be guarded because you're not just protecting your own assets. You represent the assets of many other people, especially when you deal with large investments, dealing with large family office investments. Very, very big, deals that that need to be quiet for a bit, and then you announce publicly. But yeah, shutting things down, being blessed enough to be able to shut and take a year off is a big deal. Is thing. But now, as recently, and I'll share something with you, and I don't know, you have to forgive me if I don't remember if I already shared this, but when I was with my fund, we have access to all these different companies that we invest in or that we review in growth capital. Everything from tech to cryptocurrencies to hotels to multifamily homes to very, very large acquisitions, very, very large investments. In the managing hundreds of millions at a time, moving them around. Is I hit a point in my life about 3 years ago saying, okay, I'm on a 10-year, what I call a 10-year tear. And in the next 10 years, I'm going to just tear it up. I'm just going to just make things happen on my time frame. Didn't mean I was working 12 hours a day. Actually, I was working like maybe 3-4 hours a day, max, maybe. Some weeks I would go maybe 5 hours, but if they were very, what I would call pressure point meetings, very, very pressure point discussions, to when I told my partners, I said, I'm looking for what I would call a 5-year rip, from a 10-year tear to 5-year rip. And that is finding one company or finding one pony to say, okay, I'm going to bet my day, every waking moment of my day on this one deal. And that's when I talk about the faith piece. And that's with this new company I'm now with called Gab Wireless. And it was a company we turned down twice as an investment. They just weren't hitting the numbers again. And then, so I went on this faith premise. You know what? I think their mission is sound, is valid. It's making tech safe for kids, making a safe mobile phone for children. So the premise is, our thesis is that children should not be given access to the entire internet with a smartphone. It's like throwing a 5-year-old, giving them a smartphone with everything on it, throwing them in the Atlantic Ocean and telling them to swim. Yeah. They're nailed with everything. So to me, it was very purposeful because I had a child going through therapy at the time. She was going through counseling, a teenager, because she was, subjected to online bullying and some other things and other moments in my life. And then I saw the company and I said, you know what, they're really doing something. They have a purpose. And I decided for the first time in 20 years to join a single company. And it blew my partners' minds away. They said, why would you give up managing 20 companies, 15, 20 companies, and having pieces of them to kind of spread your risk, spread your portfolio, to betting on one? And it was that faith. And it was also the people that were around me. Everyone in that company had a purpose. They had a story like mine. We were like-minded people. What I say about this company is it's overkill. The people that are running it left as CEOs of other companies, left as fund managers of other companies. That why would they join this company that's just getting off the ground? And here we are now as the number one tech company for kids. Period. We have everyone calling us from Google to Microsoft to AT&T to everybody saying, how do you do it? And it was just, we put our heads down, we listened to the market, and we all believe in it. We all had faith in it, and we worked a lot of time into it. And so now I don't work 4 hours a day now. Now I do 8, 10, 12, 16 sometimes, but I don't notice it go away, and I love it. And I know I'm doing good. And I get all the stories from the parents of, the things that we've helped avert. And so it's that final phase in life where you can say there's perfect purpose, but there's also profit in it. Mm-hmm. And it is a 5-year rip in terms of valuation, what I personally invested in the company, what I believe in that, what it spawns in other businesses. And so I would urge anyone in your group to find their little, their tear point. What is it that they can just really rip into,
Yeah.
to do that. And now that I have that and I feel pretty good about it, I've been approached by people to give back, and like this interview. It's amazing. The day you emailed me for an interview, I bet I received like in 2 weeks following like five. And and then I'm like, and so I started saying, okay, yeah, let's do this. Let's get into this realm. But you were first. It was funny. You were the first one, and then some other people said, hey, we'd like to talk to you about other things and this. And so yeah, I don't know what, if you're reading the ether right or something, but you're doing something right, because there's a lot of people are starting to get active, and I think a lot of people want to find ways to connect better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you sharing all that, Isaac. Let me ask you this. So let's kind of dig into this just a little bit here.
Yeah.
And I'm going to reiterate the question for everybody listening. And well, let me ask the question first. And so have you ever been introduced to a person that completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today wouldn't be possible if not for this person? And I know I have interviewed a lot of entrepreneurs who have said, Kevin, man, there's a lot of people like that I've met over the years. And I would imagine you're kind of in that boat too, but I also imagine that there's one that's like really stands out, and I can imagine we could probably do a whole lot of interviews around this topic too. So
yeah. So if I were to go to one person first, it would be my business partner, Sean Reyes, my former business partner.
Okay.
The day I met him
Which was
the
how
day
long ago, Isaac? How long has it been now?
2007.
Okay, so been quite a while. Okay, so we're
Yep.
right, as of right now, we're talking about 14 years plus. So
Yep, 2007. His brother, I sat on the foundation of a college, and I got his brother a job at the university as the chief of staff of the president there. And his brother said, Isaac, there's a guy you need to meet. It's my brother, and you need an attorney for your firm. I think he would be it. And I said, that's a bold statement. And I was in a yes mode when I would say yes to everything. Okay, yeah, I'll meet with him in a yes mode. Went and had dinner with he and his wife. He showed up with his wife. I didn't expect that. So I thought, oh wow, this is important to them, because his lovely wife, Stacia, showed up. And we had a great dinner, just chatted about this. I had no intention of hiring in-house counsel at all. Just got done firing my in-house counsel, with prejudice. It was a very bad time in my life. I didn't like it. I didn't like what was going on. We didn't gel, and it finally had to come to a firing moment, which I hate doing. But and I was just reeling over making such a bad mistake. And then all of a sudden in front of me was this another decision. And I thought, you know what? I feel good about this guy. I'm going to take him. And I offered him the job on the spot, and which I never do. It was almost like how you and I met, which you just go, I'm going to make a decision right now to stay in touch with Kevin Thompson. And then I saw Sean Reyes. I'm going to make you a job offer right here and there. And I made it, and he took it. And which was he was up for partner at one of the largest law firms here. And then he joined, did fantastic work. And then he said, Isaac, I want to run for Attorney General for the state of Utah. And I said, okay, I believe in that. I believe what you're going to do. Let's do it. And basically allowing him to do the time. And through that journey, I never had a life in politics ever. I was thrown into the limelight of politics, and not only just where we connected as a business partner, but I became his number one donor. And then you're put under a microscope, and so you go through a lot of junk, just horrible things. The press coming at you, everyone coming at you. Why does Isaac support him? What are his politics? What are his policies? From a point of where I was being very quiet as an investor. You don't want many people to know who you are, right? They have all the weird ones. But I tell people, if you want to be connected to the world, to everyone in the world, be a venture capitalist and be an investor, and hitch your wagon to a politician, and you will meet everybody in the world. And Sean Reyes, through him I can meet anyone I want in the world. And then the loyalty factor. We were dragged through a lot of mud and a lot of muck. We've stuck it out. We became friends. We're confidants. He calls me regularly. I call him. I've never had to call him for on anything political. He's never had to call me on anything business-wise or personal. We became good friends. But through that single decision of saying, yes, I'll meet with you, and then yes, let's do it. It feels good. It felt right, but acting on it and saying yes to it. He's changed the trajectory of my life drastically. If I could pick one, there's two other people I could point out, but he was the one that said, okay. And he's the one that will be there for me always. I'll be there for him always, no matter what. So yes, and through that, he's the one that introduced me to this current company I'm with, Gab Wireless.
Okay.
And Sean Reyes says, meet a company, I meet with them, period. I drop what I'm doing. If I have to fly in a plane, I'll go fly in a plane, and I'll ask for instructions on the way there. That's how much I respect his decision. And then because of that, now he's advising the company. He saw that I joined it. He trusts my judgment in it. So he wants to advise it, and he's coming in to advise it. So that's it's that back and forth, give and take, that loyalty factor that I think very few of us have, which I now see, now that I've turned 50, very few people, very few men especially, have this type of relationship. And so I'm very grateful for it.
Yeah, you're right. Man, thank you so much for sharing it, because that is a really a long-term relationship right there, that I'm sure will last many more years, and the benefits to both of you as a result of that relationship, I would imagine pale in comparison to how many other lives. I mean, how much of an impact has been made in the world over these last years because of the relationship that you two have created. And I don't know if you can even gauge that. It's hard to gauge those things sometimes, the real impact, but we know that it's huge. It's absolutely huge.
It is huge, especially when you look at it and, people say, oh, you're so fortunate and you guys have done this, or you've added, for instance, he brought a lawsuit against Google and Facebook over privacy, and he doesn't, of course, he takes zero advice from me, but every once in a while we'll catch a movie, we'll go to dinner, and he'll say, this is a hard road I'm taking, and we just have a friendly conversation of, is it right or is it wrong? And we check with each other, what's right, what's wrong, as humans, not as business people, the right political decision or the right business decision, because we have to be very careful with that, because we're under such microscopes now. But there's nothing wrong with being transparent with your feelings. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm taking advantage of the moment. And so when you talk about, and this is, I think, falls very well much into your category of receiving help. It's hard for business people, and I think it's hard for, I'm gonna go on a limb here. It's harder for men, I think, to really, really trust each other with almost like fighting in a foxhole situations. It's, not to diminish anything that it is hard for women. It is extremely hard for women in the workplace and what they deal with. But having professional trust to go past that and have it be a friendship, it would be, so saying yes to help is okay, even if it's just for advice. I think we ask for advice from a lot of people, but I think you and I, we've had these discussions. Sometimes I'm wary of people asking me for advice, because what do they really want? Do they want my advice, or do they really want to lead into, oh, here's this new thing that I would like you to be involved in, as opposed to really taking advice as it sits in a box and running with it. And that's what he and I have. We have advice and pieces of thought that we put in a box and we run with them. And it's being open to that's hard to do. It's having that trust.
Yeah. Well, I really want to thank you again for taking the time to have this conversation and share your insight and share your experience around this. And I think the goal has been met, in that we have definitely inspired anybody who listens to this to, yes, it would be worthwhile to place some more intentional focus on creating more rewarding, mutually beneficial relationships in my life.
Yes.
And so, Isaac, for anybody listening to this going, man, I really like what that guy Isaac shared, how could they go about like finding out anything more about their is resources you have or what have you? How can people find out more about you and what you're up to?
Um, so yeah, one is reach out to me on LinkedIn because I'm
Okay.
connected to you. If they reference you, I definitely would connect with them because I believe that if you've made it an association with them, that's meaningful to me. And it's also meaningful in that where you and I had a really rapid relationship, and you and I have not met in person. How many times have we met in person? Like twice or
Yeah,
once?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think it was just that initial meeting at Joe's
yeah,
mastermind group, and we had another opportunity, but I couldn't make it. And
right.
so, yeah, just the one time in person. That's it.
Right. So the thing I would really encourage what you're spearheading is making friends first, right? Making friends first can lead on into very interesting conversations and people offering up whatever that is. And making friends first is I think important and not being afraid of that. So LinkedIn is key for me. I have it open all day. It's the only social media I interact with. It's a tool. It's a very, very useful tool for me. In that if I need to meet somebody, I'll try first there, and then I'll reach out. And if I can't, then I'll reach out to my network and try elsewhere because I try to get to somebody on my own. So there is that piece. So, and if they're associated with you and they mention your name, absolutely, I'll connect with them without reading their bio. And then the next thing is ask something meaningful to them, something that they can carry away in a box. If they want to ask me to help them with something, I'm in a yes mode of life where I say yes till I have to say no. And so that's another mantra I really follow is like say yes until you have to say no, and because you never know what's going to happen. So that would be it.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Isaac, I knew this was going to be good, and man, you definitely delivered. So thank you again. And anybody listen to this, I know you got a ton of value from this, and thank you for listening in. And
Yeah.
I trust that we inspired you, we motivated you a little bit. You just go out there and do your thing, and just keep adding value and creating more worthwhile, meaningful, and real relationships in your life. And so with that, we'll call it a wrap.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. It was a pleasure.